She thought her empire was unbreakable, until a little girl walked in and shattered her world forever. The question thundered through the silent boardroom like lightning in a clear sky. Charlotte Hayes, the powerful CEO, froze at the head of the long glass table. Her sharp eyes locked on a little girl clutching a worn-out backpack. Her voice trembled despite her authority as she asked the single father beside the child why his daughter looked exactly like her. The room was heavy, with disbelief, confusion, and something far more fragile, recognition. No one expected the answer that would follow. And by the time the truth unraveled, every life in that room would be changed forever. Before we step into this story of secrets, sacrifice, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales Stories. If you believe kindness can change destinies and that everyone deserves a second chance at happiness, then stay with us. Because the smallest acts of love often echo the loudest. Michael Turner had never imagined stepping into a skyscraper like this one. The polished marble floors, the scent of expensive perfume lingering in the air, the soft hum of wealth. It all felt like another world. He was a single father who worked double shifts at a warehouse, his hands calloused, his back aching, his heart permanently tired. Yet he carried himself with quiet dignity. Beside him stood his 7-year-old daughter, Grace, her dark eyes curious yet shy, her small fingers wrapped tightly around his. Michael's life had been a long chain of difficult days stitched together by love. 7 years ago, on a stormy night that smelled of rain and heartbreak, he found a newborn baby abandoned in the back seat of his taxi. He had been driving part-time back then, desperate to cover hospital bills for his late wife. The baby was wrapped in a soft pink blanket, crying so softly it felt like the world had already forgotten her. There was no note, no identification, only a tiny silver bracelet engraved with a single letter. C. Michael reported it. The police searched for the parents, but no one came forward. Days turned into weeks. The baby remained unnamed in hospital records, a silent question waiting for an answer. Michael visited every day. He told himself it was concern, but deep down he knew it was something else. He saw in her the same fragile innocence he had lost when his wife passed away during childbirth years before. His arms had been empty for so long that holding her felt like breathing again. When the system finally declared the baby abandoned, Michael made the boldest decision of his life. He adopted her. He named her Grace after the flowers his wife used to love. From that moment, every sacrifice felt lighter. Every hardship carried purpose. Raising Grace alone was not easy. Money was always short. There were nights when Michael drank only water so Grace could have fruit in her lunchbox. Winters when he pretended he wasn't cold so she could have the thicker blanket. He learned to braid her hair by watching tutorials late at night. He attended every school event, even if it meant losing wages. To him, she wasn't someone else's child. She was his daughter in every way that mattered. But Grace grew, and with her growth came questions Michael feared. She looked nothing like him. Her features were refined, delicate, hinting at a different world. Even her posture carried unusual grace. Teachers often assumed she came from wealth. Michael would smile politely and change the subject. Everything shifted the day Grace's school announced a citywide art competition sponsored by one of the largest corporations in the region. The winner would receive a scholarship funded personally by the company's CEO, Charlotte Hayes. Grace loved drawing. Her pictures glowed with warmth, homes under golden sunsets, fathers holding daughters' hands, hope painted in soft colors. Michael encouraged her to participate, even though the event would be held at the corporate headquarters itself. That was how they ended up there. The moment Charlotte Hayes walked into the hall where the children's artwork was displayed, the air changed. Known for her brilliance and icy composure, she had built an empire from her family's struggling business after her parents' passing. People admired her strength but feared her detachment. She rarely smiled. She trusted numbers more than people. But when her eyes fell on Grace's painting, something stirred inside her. The artwork showed a little girl standing between two worlds, one dark, one bright. holding hands with a shadowy figure who looked protective and warm. At the bottom, in uneven handwriting, were the words, "Love makes us family." Charlotte's chest tightened. She turned and saw Grace standing beside Michael. It was like looking into a mirror of the past. The same almond-shaped eyes. The same small birthmark near the collarbone. The same furrowed brow when concentrating. Charlotte's breath caught. Without thinking, she asked the question that shattered the room. Michael felt Grace's hand squeeze his. He had always known this day might come. The silver bracelet with the letter C was tucked away safely at home. He had kept it not as a clue, but as a reminder that Grace's story began before him. He took a slow breath and explained everything. The taxi, the storm, the abandoned baby, the bracelet. Charlotte's composure crumbled piece by piece. 7 years ago, she had made a decision that haunted her every night. Young, overwhelmed, manipulated by someone she trusted, she was convinced her career would be destroyed if the world knew she had given birth. The child's father had disappeared, leaving her alone with scandal and fear. In a moment of weakness she would regret forever, she allowed her newborn daughter to be taken away temporarily, believing she would reclaim her once things stabilized. But betrayal stole her child away. Investigations led nowhere. Charlotte buried her grief beneath ambition, building walls around her heart so high even she couldn't see over them. Now those walls were cracking. Tears welled in her eyes. Michael expected anger, perhaps even an attempt to claim Grace immediately. Instead, Charlotte looked at him with something he never anticipated: gratitude. Michael told her he had always known Grace might have another story behind her beginning. He never tried to erase that possibility. He raised her with love, not ownership. Grace deserved truth, but also stability and choice. She was not a possession, not a scandal. She was a child, not a headline. The room stood silent. In that moment, the most powerful woman in the company realized that the poorest man in the room possessed something she had been searching for her entire life: unconditional courage. Weeks followed. DNA tests confirmed what their hearts already knew. Charlotte was Grace's biological mother, but the story did not become a battle, it became a bridge. Charlotte began visiting Michael's modest apartment. The first time she stepped inside, she seemed almost fragile, her expensive heels awkward on the worn carpet. She saw the drawings on the refrigerator, the neatly folded laundry, the small bookshelf filled with secondhand children's stories. She saw a life built carefully, not extravagantly. She saw how Grace ran into Michael's arms after school, how she trusted him completely. Charlotte didn't try to replace him. Instead, she asked if she could be part of Grace's life. Michael, though afraid, saw sincerity in her eyes. He set boundaries, not out of pride but protection. Grace would not be uprooted overnight. She would not be paraded as an heir. She would grow surrounded by honesty. The transition was slow, tender, imperfect. Grace was confused at first. The word mother felt foreign, but Charlotte didn't rush her. She attended school plays quietly in the back row. She learned to braid Grace's hair. She listened more than she spoke. And something extraordinary happened. Michael and Charlotte, two people from opposite worlds, found themselves united not by romance, but by responsibility and redemption. They learned to communicate, to forgive, to let go of shame. Charlotte established a foundation in Grace's name to support single parents struggling like Michael once had. She publicly shared her past, not as failure but as testimony of growth. The media was shocked, but the public responded with empathy. Her vulnerability humanized her in a way success never could. Michael continued working, but also pursued night classes funded quietly by Charlotte's foundation, not as charity, but as partnership. He studied business management, something he had once dreamed of before life forced him into survival mode. Years later, Grace stood on a stage once again, older, confident, radiant. She spoke about family not as something defined by blood or money, but by love and choice. She thanked her father for teaching her strength and her mother for teaching her courage. And in the audience, Michael and Charlotte sat side by side, not as rivals, but as allies. Before we close this chapter, if this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and comment. Your engagement helps Kindness Tales Stories